look around the world, are we in a gutter? Kind of. It's interesting that we complain so much about the world, and it hasn't really changed a whole lot, like our attitude towards it. You go back a few hundred years and people are still complaining about the state of the world. Go back 100 years, go back 50 years, go back 1,000 years. And yet today we like all of the things that we thought were our problems. Life is hard. We just don't have, having to have enough food is really difficult. Man, if there's one thing we've got right now, it's enough food. I walk around the hallways after lunch and we have so much food that there's just food like thrown down and scattered all over the hallways. So even if we don't have much money, food is not really that much of a concern of ours. Safety, security, comfort. We have rooms with air conditioning in them. Cars. We have transportation. We have just all of human entertainment in a phone in front of us, man. Geez Louise, we entertain ourselves to death. We literally entertain ourselves to death. And yet we're less happy today than we've ever been. It's almost like having a bunch of stuff doesn't make us happy. So it might be worth considering at some point, then what is the thing that makes us happy? Like I said, ask that question. What's the last star that you wished upon? What's the last star that you aimed at? Because the gutter that we're in might not be the world. The gutter that we're in might be our minds. It might be how we're perceiving the world. Maybe it's the fact that we look around and we just complain about things, and maybe we complain so much because we don't really have much to complain about. It's certainly not the way that we used to have things to complain about. Today we complain because we don't have Wi-Fi, whereas your grandparents and great-grandparents may have complained because they didn't have enough food. Why do we associate greatness, or why do we associate great things or dreams with stars?
Because there's something harder to reach sometimes.
Sometimes?
Sometimes.
You ever been to a star?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm 15 and I'm not allowed to go on a spaceship.
Well, not with that attitude. Is anybody allowed to? I don't know. I'm going to be 44 this week. Do I get to go on the spaceship?
Yeah, for sure.
No, I tried.
Really?
Yeah.
What is it?
They said no.
Yeah.
Right? It was my dream, man. By the way, that's a true story. Several years ago, they were planning there was a mission being planned to Mars, and you could apply for it. But the thing is only a one-way mission. You weren't coming back. So you could go online and you could apply. I applied for it. I wanted to go to Mars, man. And they're like, yeah, but if you go to Mars, you're going to die there. Yeah, but you're going to die on Earth too. Would you rather die on Earth, or would you rather die on Mars?
Mars.
Hell yeah! I had a plan, man. They only picked 8 people, and then everybody they picked were like agriculturalists, scientists. They had no need for a philosopher and a poet, I guess. Go figure. But my plan was, if I get there, all I gotta do is just survive longer than everybody else and proclaim myself the king of Mars. And then all the history books from here forward would have to identify me as the first king of Mars. I don't know, man. Is there anything better than that? Maybe the first king of Jupiter, first king of Saturn. I'll stop there.
Maybe Venus.
What's that?
Venus.
Venus? It's going backwards though. That's going towards the sun.
Great.
That's why I stopped at Saturn. But I really did want to go. Yeah, maybe that would have been better. King of Pluto. Then I could proclaim Pluto a planet. Finally, we could straighten out some things in the universe. But I applied, but I couldn't go on. They didn't have any need for people who weren't scientists to go on. And by the way, before you think like that's weird, why would you want to go die on Mars? There were over 100,000 applicants for that thing, and it was a one-way trip. You were told you weren't coming back, man. You were going to go there, try to set something up, and you were going to die there. And the idea was you hopefully would set up something such that other people could go there in the future, like a base where other people could use it in the future. So you weren't going to get to enjoy the benefits of what you're going to be building on Mars. You were going to have to kind of, I guess, just enjoy the fact that you knew somebody else would be building things on Mars. And people were thinking like, that's crazy. But isn't that exactly what everybody on this planet does also if you have kids? Like you're trying to create a better world that you're not going to get to live in. You're trying to create a better world so that you have children who are going to get to live in a better world that you create, hopefully. And you might get like a little bit of it, I suppose. But really, I mean, that's a lot of what just being a human is. It's planting a tree that you're never going to get to sit under the shade of. And you can look at that and just think like, that's depressing, that's sad. So all the work I put in right now, I'm living in a world that my grandparents and my parents created, yeah. And you'll get to enjoy like a little sliver of what you create, probably. But by and large, it's going to be your children who are going to be having that same dilemma that you're having if you're thinking about that. And so, yeah, it begs this question about why it is that we look at the stars and we think of them as something, magical and beautiful. One thing is because, like, they are,
From afar.
Yeah, from afar, like most things. Like most things are beautiful from afar. Anybody here like really into space? Stars, planets, these things? A couple? Man. Get some binoculars and go out at night and it will trip you out. I remember the first time I did this, it tripped me out. Because you look up and you just see like, stars, whatever. But when you get binoculars and you look up at the sky, you actually see way more stars than you see just looking up at it with your eyes. The first time I did that, it absolutely blew me away because you don't realize it because there's so much light pollution here. But even just with binoculars from where you are and you look up, you'll start to see, I'm talking like the whole sky is just completely filled with these things. It's unreal what you can see with just a pair of binoculars in a city. I can only imagine, like, sometimes I just think, like, I can only imagine what our ancestors saw with no light pollution, just looking up at the sky. And there has to be something, like the first people who left Africa, think about that. There has to be something that drove them. Because if you're in sub-Saharan Africa and you're looking north, all you see is just desert. And what is there for hundreds of miles? Nothing but desert, and some of the hottest desert on the planet. Of course, they don't know that, but they do know it's really, really hot. They know that there's no water there. Some people, I'm sure, ventured out into it, and they never came back. And it's probably not because they survived it. It's probably because they died. And yet there's some people who still said, you know what? Maybe they just haven't tried the right way yet. They haven't wished upon the right star just yet. But in order for you to want to venture out past the Sahara, there has to be a reason for it. If everything is great exactly where you are, then you're never going to venture out to find out what else is in the world. It's an uncomfortable part of life, but part of life is that we have to be uncomfortable if we're going to venture out into greatness, into great things, even into good things. In other words, if living at home is incredibly satisfying for you, then there's not going to be a reason to venture out. I was talking to actually I could say, so I have a friend, call her Bubbles because she's very bubbly. My friend Bubbles, I was talking to her at one point, I remember, and she lived at home, lived with her parents, and everything was provided for her. Very comfortable existence. She kind of enjoyed it. She wanted to move out on her own when her parents were like, no, don't, stay at home. And I remember one time we were talking and she was saying that she was comfortable and she enjoyed it. She loved her parents, but she couldn't just like get rid of this gnawing feeling that she wasn't able to become her own person staying where she was. So staying at home was comfortable, generally, but there was a discomfort in her, which was, I know that staying comfortable like I am right now is not allowing me to become my own person. And she realized at some point she was going to have to become her own person. I think she was like 26, 27, something like that. And she knew that even at that age that she had to venture out to become her own person. So there has to be a little bit of something uncomfortable in us, no matter where we are, in order for us to leave so that we can go out and experience things to become our own person. Otherwise, you're never going to be anything other than what you are. If you're staying at home right now and you're 15 or whatever, and then you stay there until you're 30, there's a very good chance you're going to mostly be the same person at 30 as you are at 15. A little bit less, maybe a little bit older, but largely probably the same person. It's having to go out and experience the world that changes you. And it's going out and experiencing the world and then encountering it and responding to it that helps you shape you. It isn't just that you go out into the world and the world acts upon you and beats you up and all of a sudden you come out different. It's also that you go out into the world and the world does try to beat you up, but you fight back with the things that you have, with your character, with your intellect, with your desire, with your will, with your dreams. And then you become something else, or you become at least a stronger version, or at least the real you kind of gets to emerge. But if you stay comfortable the whole time, there's never a reason to leave. There's no reason to leave. Same as if, like I said, our ancestors living in sub-Saharan Africa, if there had to have been some reason for them to look across the desert and say, I bet there's something out there that's worth going to. I bet there's something out there that's better than what we have here. Or at least the curiosity of what was out there was such that it wouldn't let them be comfortable with where they were. And so you proceed. And I just think about it like, back then, going back 300,000 years, there's no light, there's no cities. They just look up at the sky, and what they had to have seen had to have just absolutely been incredible. And they had no idea what they were living under. They had some guesses, but they didn't know. I mean, we barely even have an idea. I can only imagine how little of an idea they had, but it didn't stop them. They still went forward. They knew it could cost them their life, but they went forward anyway, because they weren't driven by safety and security. They were driven by adventure and desire. They wanted to know, they wanted to experience, they wanted to live. And the truth is that most of the things that you really want to encounter in life are going to be on the other side of that desert. If you venture out into it, are you going to survive it? Maybe not. Maybe not. But you know that the things that you really want to experience in life are either in the desert or on the other side of the desert, on the other side of comfortability. As we're looking here, we're all in the gutter. And what's in the gutter? Like in actual life, what's in the gutter? What does the gutter carry? What's this?
Like nasty things.
All the nasty stuff. Yeah. When you look around the world, are we in a gutter? Kind of. It's interesting that we complain so much about the world, and it hasn't really changed a whole lot, like our attitude towards it. You go back a few hundred years and people are still complaining about the state of the world. Go back 100 years, go back 50 years, go back 1,000 years. And yet today we like all of the things that we thought were our problems. Life is hard. We just don't have, having to have enough food is really difficult. Man, if there's one thing we've got right now, it's enough food. I walk around the hallways after lunch and we have so much food that there's just food like thrown down and scattered all over the hallways. So even if we don't have much money, food is not really that much of a concern of ours. Safety, security, comfort. We have rooms with air conditioning in them. Cars. We have transportation. We have just all of human entertainment in a phone in front of us, man. Geez Louise, we entertain ourselves to death. We literally entertain ourselves to death. And yet we're less happy today than we've ever been. It's almost like having a bunch of stuff doesn't make us happy. So it might be worth considering at some point, then what is the thing that makes us happy? Like I said, ask that question. What's the last star that you wished upon? What's the last star that you aimed at? Because the gutter that we're in might not be the world. The gutter that we're in might be our minds. It might be how we're perceiving the world. Maybe it's the fact that we look around and we just complain about things, and maybe we complain so much because we don't really have much to complain about. It's certainly not the way that we used to have things to complain about. Today we complain because we don't have Wi-Fi, whereas your grandparents and great-grandparents may have complained because they didn't have enough food. Maybe we complain today because we don't have the kind of food that we want. If you think about it, we go to, I don't know if any of you guys don't like onions on your cheeseburgers. And if you go to McDonald's and you order your cheeseburger specifically without onions, and they put onions on your cheeseburger, you get mad because they gave you too much food. It's not the kind of food you want, but think about that. Like, we have the luxury of complaining that they gave us too much food at McDonald's. We don't like the way it tastes. And so the idea is that we have to find something to complain about. Why? Because if we're complainers, that's just what we'll do. You know, are things in the world perfect? No, but perfection is never the standard, man. Perfection is never the standard. We don't apply that anywhere else. Perfection is I mean, even something as a goal. A problem is if we set perfection as a goal, you can't enjoy things when they're good or even when they're great, because the perfect is the enemy of the good. Things are really, really good. Yeah, but it's not perfect. I mean, think about how many sentences begin like that. Yeah, but. You know, so we might be in the gutter. Some situations are worse than others. That's absolutely true, man. And some perceptions are worse than others. But I guess I'd ask that question. It's worth thinking about. But when's the last time you really wished upon a star, aimed at something way far out there, and stared at it? Because if you aim at something that's way far out there, you don't really have time to be in the gutter, or at least to realize you're in the gutter, because you're so centrally focused on something greater, some great goal, some ambition that you have. You know, if we focus on the bad, well, of course, we're going to find the negative everywhere. But man, if you can find something that to really aim yourself at and gear yourself towards, you know, the gutter won't seem like such a gutter anymore, because you're not thinking about the now, you're thinking about what could be. And that might be a good place to start to imagine ourselves, not what we are, but what we could be. And our lives, not what they are, but what they could be. And again, focusing yourself on what could be, you won't have a lot of time to complain about what is. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Monday-ish.